And we did see a march in the local community in Coolock after the first few days, which was, I think, to the Garda station to hand in a letter of complaint about the policing activity that took place there. Do you think that relationships with the local community have been damaged? And if so, what efforts can be made to restore those relationships?
Thanks, Commissioner. So I don't think our relationship has been harmed significantly by the events of the last couple of days out there. And I suppose I should point to, they have been a difficult couple of days, particularly for that community, particularly for the members responding. But we've responded to over 400 protests so far this year, and a handful have caused us problems. So that whole democratic right that we spoke about earlier, that's so important. As Cliona had mentioned, that community have some genuine and legitimate concern out there. However, they have been infiltrated by others. But I think we have a long history of engagement out there. We have significant investment in community-based projects in that particular area around Coolock, and that will continue. And in the last couple of days, that's exactly what we're doing. We're out there, we're engaging with the local community, and we're on first name terms with many people in that community. And we've had significant support from the community in our investigation. And I would like to thank the community for that, and encourage anybody else that has any further information about the events of the last couple of days to come forward, either confidentially or formally to us, and we'll certainly take any information that they have on board. So to get back to your question, that is a community, that's a decent community as part of the city. We will continue to engage proactively with them, continue to work with that community, and our relationship will continue to be a positive and productive relationship. And
I wonder, Assistant Commissioner, can you talk about what reassurance can be given to individuals in that community who might perhaps feel vulnerable in the wake of the last 10 days or so?
So I suppose just to let the community know that we have a specific policing plan in place around the site in question, but then more broadly, we have specific plans in place for protest activity, both planned and spontaneous. And that came into being on Monday when the spontaneous protest happened. Generally, we would have some prior notice about protest activity. We have specific plans in place, but we have an overarching plan across the DMR because we have so many protests. So there's an overarching plan there that there's lots of things we do proactively to try to establish, the intent of people who want to turn up and voice concerns over particular things that are happening. So we try that engagement, and that works really well and has worked really well in that community as well, because this all started off in March out there, where it was initially, where that site was initially indicated as a site that might be utilised for accommodation for international protection applicants. So we had protest activity early on in March through April, and then we had very limited activity there since April up until last week. So just to reassure the community, we are monitoring to make sure that we're aware of anything that might be happening in the area. Regrettably, a spontaneous incident happened, but very quickly it was brought under control. We have sufficient resources deployed. We have increased our public order capacity threefold in the last 2 years. So we almost have 700 people trained in public order with full equipment in the city. And that's the reason we were able to very quickly stand up 6 serials on last Monday week. So I suppose just to reassure the community, we are still there, we will still support them and continue to support them, and that won't change.
Thank you. Commissioner, just to come back to you, looking back on the last 10 or 11 days, can you give us an overall sense of how you think the Guards did in terms of the policing operation at Coolock, and what lessons, if any, you've learned from that?
Well, the operation carries on. That's the first thing. We had a difficult day on the Monday. There's no doubt about that. But again, the organisation responded well, and people shouldn't have any doubt about the response and from the organisation, which is a professional response. A lot of the lessons from the 23rd of November have been learnt and applied in terms of the command protocols, and that all worked well. And the additional equipment, which is available to members now, it made a difference as well, and more is to come too. I would point again to the de-escalation and the ability still to mount and sustain a very professional policing service in the Coolock area, and patrols engaging with those protesters who still remain at the site. I think just a point I would like to emphasise beyond what we've spoken about already is that Garda members being threatened online, and we take that very seriously. That's part of our investigations into this matter. Garda members are also protected by the legislation, and there is specific legislation around being harassed online, and obviously we will investigate that and report to the DPP as appropriate, because there's very unsavoury things being said about individual Garda members online, and that will be subject to investigation and pursued as well. But overall, I think that in Coolock, they did tremendously well. They were supported well on the Monday morning, and then DMR mobilised on Monday itself, and then the organisation mobilised in behind that as well. And that's what people would expect, and that's what indeed all of us expect when we face difficult circumstances like this. Now, where we want to be is that we avoid such circumstances in the future through planning, etc., as I've already said. And we've also then met today with the associations, and the associations were very constructive in their commentary and their suggestions that they made, and certainly there's things that we'd want to follow through on, but they're very firm in their resolution in terms of our policing response and what appropriate policing response should be to these circumstances.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.